So I just want to ask this question because I feel like there are so many black women in our space, the space of divested and or swirling black women who saw the story of a 19-year-old black girl who went missing and ran with a certain narrative once the media labeled her as a Black Lives Matter protester who went missing after attending a protest, right? Many of you, including those of you who are old enough to be her mother and or her auntie, ran with this narrative where you said, "Oh, she's a mammy and she's a pick me," without doing any research into her background. So let me ask you something, because the man who is a suspect in her disappearance and murder has also been implicated in the disappearance and murder of a 75-year-old white woman. So if Toyin Salau is a mammy, then what is 75-year-old Victoria Symes? What about the other woman that he was accused of assaulting back in May? Is she also a mammy? The other women that he has a long history of abusing, are they also mammies? Or are we only applying that mammy label to a young black girl? Because I said it on my other channel and it bears repeating. If you are old enough to be this girl's mother or auntie, and you labeled her as a mammy without doing any research into her background, it makes you look bitter. It makes it look like you have a hatred for younger black women and for black girls. Her friends are talking all over social media, and they're saying Toyin was kicked out of her family home after she told her mother that her brother had sexually assaulted her several times. Her mother's response was to kick her out. That's why Toyin had nights that she was sleeping on the streets of Tallahassee or sleeping in a church. And that's why she was in a situation where she was seeking refuge in a roof over her head on June the 6th. So she would have been homeless and destitute and looking for food and a warm shower on June the 6th, whether or not she attended that protest. And the fact that some of you are overlooking that is disgusting. If you look at her own Twitter page, she was tweeting about the fact that it was disgusting to her that she was protesting for men that were stealing her innocence. So had her life not been taken from her, she probably would have had the opportunity to learn, okay, that she needed to stay away from these protests and be self first. She didn't have that opportunity because her family abandoned her. She was vulnerable and on the streets. And in her death, the very women who share her phenotype are treating her in the same way that her mother did. You're throwing her out and treating her like she's worthless because some of you have some issues that you need to work on. You feel abandoned. You feel like you were left alone, and therefore you do not have empathy for younger black women and girls. And that's just what it is. And anytime these cases come up, I didn't see y'all calling Vanessa Bryant a mammy or a pick-me. I don't see you calling the 75-year-old woman who was found deceased along with Toyin a mammy or a pick-me. So that begs the question, why is this 19-year-old girl a mammy? Because you ran with the media's narrative. Why? Now, if you're in her age group and that's how you feel, I cannot dictate the conversations that you all are having in your generations. But I'm saying older women who walked that path, if that's the first thing when you saw this girl, I'm sorry, that's disgusting to me. Now, we can agree to disagree on this issue, but I'm not backing down on my opinion. So again, if this is all a psyop and Toyin is a mammy and so on and so forth, then what are you saying about the messages that we communicate in this space? Are you saying that you don't believe the statistics that show that Black girls often grow up in homes where we're abused, whether it's sexually or physically? Are you saying that you don't believe that as a result of that, many Black girls grow up to become Black women who have a lot of issues that we work through or that we have to work through? What do you have to say about Aaron Glee Jr.'s rap sheet and his history of taking advantage of vulnerable women? The woman that he assaulted in May was a homeless woman. So when a lot of Black women and girls grow up in these families where they are thrown out on the streets, then guess what? They become the prey. And it becomes very likely that they will run across men like Aaron Glee. And it becomes likely that they will be put into situations where they are taken advantage of or where they will have to do certain things for subsistence. Right? Like participate in certain sexual activities for food and housing or be subject to sex trafficking. But you can't say that you believe that and then see an actual young Black girl who's a victim of that and not believe her, not support her. It just doesn't make sense. And as you see on the screen, this is another case against him. If you Google Aaron Glee Jr., you will find a lot of his criminal record. And she was on the streets and came across him again because her mother kicked her out of the house after she told her mother about her brother sexually abusing her. So this narrative that she got sexually assaulted because she went to a protest is not true. Because again, she would have been homeless and on the streets regardless of whether or not she went to that protest. And if you look at the pictures of her from that day, she did not look like a person who had regular housing. She looked unkept. She looked unclean. And that's because she didn't have a steady roof over her head. So how can you be a Black woman in your 30s or older and hear about what happened to her and not recognize that? Do you understand that you're giving these men who say, oh, this is all divisive and gender warring, you're giving them a leg to stand on when you show no empathy or compassion for her, when you don't see her humanity, her girlhood, and her young womanhood? When we can't even stand together as Black women and say, okay, what happened to this girl was wrong. Not only her sexual assault and her death, but the abusive home situation was wrong. Her mother kicking her out was wrong. Her family trying to profit off of her death is wrong. All these other BS arguments that we're having take away from the fact that what happened to this young girl was a travesty. It was evil. It was horrible. It was wrong. And we can't get any support or anything done legally on a national level with all of this infighting and older Black women looking at her and saying, oh, she was a mammy because she did something I didn't like. That's another form of abuse because it's dragging and muddying up her image. And if you can't see that, I just hope that at some point you can do a heart check. Anyway, please rate, comment, and subscribe. I will talk to you all very soon. And if you want updates on Toyin, make sure you check her social media and her friends' social media. Her friends are talking a lot and they're telling her story. They're sharing the things that she shared with them. Okay? Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Goodbye.